Hello, and welcome to Ask a Paleontologist. I'm Dr. Scott Persons, and today's question comes to us from Kim. Kim writes, "Doesn't all that digging get boring and monotonous, especially if you don't find anything for a long time?" Well, Kim, yes it can. But understand that as a dinosaur paleontologist, I don't actually spend a lot of time digging without finding anything. And that's because I don't normally start digging until something has already been found. Let me walk you through how a typical paleontological expedition runs. And our timing for this is good because up here in Alberta, our field season is about to start. So we begin by making camp in an area where we think we're likely to find fossils. And we can think that because maybe it's a spot where fossils have been found before, or maybe it's a location that's got a lot of sedimentary rocks from the right point in time. Anyway, we don't just head out to the field and start digging a hole. Instead, we go out prospecting. And that means we go out for a hike and hunch over, look at the ground a lot. What we're looking for are small bits and pieces of bone, or a little bit of a larger bone that's exposed on the surface. Now, if a dinosaur skeleton has successfully fossilized, that means it's been buried for a very long time. And over time, lots and lots of sediments have piled up over top of the skeleton, and those sediments have hardened into solid rock. So most dinosaur skeletons are buried deep within the earth where we don't see them. But in environments like badlands, where there's a lot of erosion, the sediments that have piled up on top of the skeleton have been removed. Now, what we're looking for is not a location where the entire skeleton has wound up being exposed by erosion on the surface. And we don't want that because the fossil bones will erode away just like the rock. Instead, what we want is a situation where erosion has brought the sediment layers down to a point where just a very little bit of the skeleton is exposed on the surface for us to find. Now, normally erosion in the Badlands happens along hillsides. So oftentimes you've got a little bit of the dinosaur bone exposed in one spot and a lot of it's buried elsewhere. So the first part of the excavation is what we call overburden removal. Overburden removal is getting rid of all the rest of the hillside so we're down to the same layer as the skeleton. And yeah, that can get pretty monotonous and boring. That's just hard work, shoveling and moving a lot of rock as fast as you can. Sometimes we even have to use jackhammers to get that part of the job done. But once we have, then things really start to get interesting. We'll work very close to the layer of the bone, and we get to find out how much of the skeleton we actually have preserved. Now, that can also be a little bit monotonous, but it depends on how hard the rock is that's encasing the fossil skeleton. Sometimes it can be a really hard rock, like a dense sandstone, and that can take a long time. But other times, the skeleton's preserved in a soft rock, maybe a mudstone or a shale, and that can be very exciting because you can get through the rock very quickly, and you're finding a lot of bones fairly rapidly. Let me show you what my toolkit for working near the skeleton actually looks like. So in here, I've got, to begin with, a sharp metal awl. And I use this for scratching and prying my way through pretty hard rock. I've also got a little scraper. That's for that nice soft shale. I've got a variety of brushes to keep my work area clear. And for work right next to the bones, I've got some dental picks. It's the same thing a dentist would use to clean your teeth with. Now, I should say that the real work on the fossil isn't actually done in the field. Instead, most of the work winds up being done once the fossil has been brought back to the preparation laboratory of the university or the museum that dug it up. Typically, work in the preparation lab takes 3 times the amount of labor that work in the field does. So there you go, Kim. Work on the dinosaur excavation can have moments when it does get a little boring, but it's totally worth it, and we're never too far from the bones. Thanks for the question. If you like this video, say so below and send me any questions you have.
So I'm recording you, Scott.
Okay, cool.
Tell me about your discovery this morning.
So yesterday we've got a little section of bone that was sticking out right there, something long and narrow. And our thinking initially, of course, was that it was just a rib, maybe displaced from the rest of the skeleton or something like that. Today we've discovered that that elongate bone is actually longer and longer, and it connects to the skull, which makes our animal look much more like a Styracosaurus than a Centrosaurus.
How excited are you?
I'm so excited. This is the best thing I've ever found. I'm thrilled.